My name is Fedorah Philippeaux, and I will be playing the part of the toothless cunt slash ginger bitch. So that's a fun question because it's very recent, actually, as far as stage acting goes. So I've always performed, like, since I was like 6. I started singing on stage, and then got into musicals and doing a lot of performance, more musical theater. And I wanted to do that and still want to do that professionally. So, like, Broadway, West End. Uh, and then, in order to better myself, I decided last year that I should get my acting skills up to par. So it literally was about a year and a half ago. I took the class mostly to supplement my singing and dancing skills, and somehow I completely fell in love with it. Like it's almost like it was already hiding inside and waiting to come out, and I just didn't realize it. So, because I'd always loved going to plays and I love Shakespeare, and I know it's very cliche and classic, but I love the classics. So it's almost as if once I got introduced to this stage in pure acting form, it was like, where has this been my whole life? So I found out about it through a friend of mine who was also auditioning. Like I'm completely new to Prague, and I wasn't big on like getting onto the social circles and finding out what's going on, but I was in an acting class with Brian. And so somebody there posted like, "Hey, D Prompt is having auditions." And I was like, "What's D Prompt?" Like I had no idea what it was. I just saw the post like late one evening and went, "Okay, why not? Like let's try." So, first of all, it was very different. I hadn't read Russian literature in quite a while. I mean, I did my master's in Germany, so I was reading at the time Dostoevsky. I was reading Crime and Punishment, which I quite enjoyed, and most people hated. But after that, I just kind of didn't really go back to Russian literature for a bit. And when I read it, it just like re-piqued my interest. Additionally, like for me, the big thing is if you're reading something and you see this character and you all like immediately kind of picture yourself in that role, to me that's like a wake up call, like, oh, like this is something you have to go for, because I immediately felt a connection to my character. A couple of years ago I was in the UK, and we kind of did a showcase of a lot of very, very popular, well-known musicals. And so within a 2.5 hour time span, I had to be a lot of different characters. And exactly like this kind of actually reminds me a lot of that. One of them was like Master of the House, where you have this kind of, I was actually like a beggar, like drunkard beggar, but I had to play this character to where people still like were interested. And like it, I guess it's like a background character or whatever, but I really think like I brought a very comical um like a, yeah, kind of comical perspective to the whole scene, because there were maybe two of us going back and forth. And then like 5 seconds later I had to play in Jekyll and Hyde and be one of the upper class women. So it's really funny because you have to like literally switch from song to song, switch characters completely. And for me, that's something that I have to do in this play as well, and I'm trying to nail it. But yeah, switching characters very quickly, and the excitement of just of working with a cast and being you're not. So I love monologues. I do because I kind of get to talk about what I want to do, and it feels very intimate and personal. But then working with a cast, you have to really play off and vibe off of each other and the energy that they're giving off. It's the same in musicals. It's really whatever everybody else is putting on that stage is what you're going to be able to put out as well. So differences, yeah, for me, honestly, the singing comes naturally. So I do have to practice a lot, but it's very different. Like the way that I feel going into something like a musical versus going into this, I kind of feel like I'm a lot more serious in this form. I have to be. I feel like I have to be more composed. Like I have to almost reflect and meditate beforehand, kind of put myself in a certain state of mind to really nail it. Because I think when I do musicals, I can kind of hide behind the music a lot, or like my voice can give what maybe my face and my body can't. Or you have choreographed moves and dances, so your dance can do that for you. But here you have moments, for example, where you're just on the stage and it's literally you, your words, and you have to have it like on your face. You have to have it without moving. You can't always move back and forth so much. So you really have to be still and still portray what you need to portray. So I did a little bit of background research as much as I could. So I actually watched the I think actual Benedict Yerofev in the later years of his life, where he's actually doing a short like film of Moscow Petushki, and I kind of saw the narration of that and him talking about it. And I do have Russian friends, so I consult them as well. But I kind of just draw from whoever I know that's close to the culture and what their background and what their life stories have been about. Because of course, I mean, I don't have as much of that inner knowledge. I didn't grow up with it, but just talking to other people and seeing what is it, what's at the bottom of all of this story, like what are their lives like, what were their lives like, and why all the drinking, but aside from that, just in general, of course, again, I used to read Dostoevsky, so going back to literature, for me, that's a big thing. I read, so whatever I read about. One of my favorites, all-time favorites, is Michael Caine. Um, I don't know. That man to me is just brilliant and spot on. Like, I have never seen him. It could be the supporting role, it could be a minor appearance. Everything he does, you have the impression he gives his all 100%. It doesn't matter what his character is. And to me, I really respect that. He's consistent. Like, I literally have never seen, even in comedies, I'm like, oh, now he's doing a comedy. Still don't think his performance is underrated. I mean, he's always just spot on to me. Female, American, this one, Viola Davis. She's an African American female. Not a lot of African American females in modern day, especially in the US, in film, in TV. And she's one that's a very strong actor, or actress rather, and has been able to be so versatile and do so many different things. And she's just so strong in her performances. They're spot on. You can see the work ethic is there and the consistency is there. I think there's multiple layers to it. I think on the surface, it's a journey, which can be indicative of a far deeper journey, which is the journey of life, of suffering, of pain, of sorrow, but also of light, of inspiration, of little moments that kind of connect you and ground you to the people around you. The things that either help to clarify, or rather at times confuse you in terms of where you want to go, what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, it's all of that. To me, I mean, it is on the surface really this journey, right? From one city to another. But what happens along that journey is so much deeper than what it may appear. And I think that's just the theme for life in general. Of course, here it's in the Russian context, and Moscow is the big kind of center, and Petushki is the symbolism of like where you want to get to, and all the dreams that you have, and all the things that pull you in, and and there are things along the way that are just stopping you or holding you back. But at the end of the day, I think that's applicable to all of us for, yeah, for a number of reasons. I do love Shakespeare. I mean, it doesn't, yeah. I really love the classics. I used to play violin when I was younger, so I was always listening to like Mozart and Beethoven. And for me, the equivalent, so music is kind of my thing, but then the equivalence for me in writing really was and still is Shakespeare. I've never had the fortune of acting any of his plays, but I have auditioned with them. And to me, it just never gets old. I mean, so applicable to today still. And so many students still cry over it and struggle with it, which is why I love it so much, because it's like we're still struggling with this today and it's still so relevant. French playwright Molière. I love Molière. I think he's so funny. Also similar that it's still relevant today. You can still do a Molière and be like, oh, wow, that's just changed the names around and it's basically where we are today. Love the satire. So I had the fortune of living with one of my very close friends who's from Moscow as well. And she told me a lot about her life growing up. And honestly, like from what I understood, it wasn't easy at all. There is a lot of poverty. There's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of I mean, in a way, it kind of reminds me a bit of here in Czech Republic as well, because I think they have kind of similar mentalities, understandably. But at the end of the day, from what I understand, they're very good people. They're open, like they're really giving. You go to anyway, this might be cliche, but I go to Russian people's houses and it's like immediately hospitable. It's sit down, eat, can I teach you this? Can I give you that? Like my friend's mother doesn't speak a word of English, and every time I call her, she's just like saying hello and like smiling, laughing. But yeah, there is this tendency to kind of talk a lot about the past and where they come from. I mean, they have a culture that maybe a lot of people misconstrue, and people kind of say like Russians drink and they're loud and they're obnoxious and annoying. And it's like I think you have to kind of understand that they've suffered a lot, and like people who suffer and are still suffering and are not able to get out of like a system that has perhaps beaten them down and held them back, and that system is still in place today. Yeah, like it explains a lot of how their behavior and their demeanor is, and so inevitably we drink, but we drink to cope, right? We drink to deal with, we drink to, yeah, to handle all of that. So that's kind of how I see it, but they're great people, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. A journey in search of oneself, in search of one's purpose, in search of one's future, accompanied by others along the way who are no different from you, also in the same path and the same journey towards that final destination, open to whatever comes along the way. Biasedly saying my own character. I love my character. I mean, there are other characters I really like as well. I love my character because I identified with her from the get go. I think she just symbolizes really the beauty and the hope and the love and the things that keep us kind of sane and keep us going in the most difficult of times. And of course, there's this comedic side and yeah, her name and everything, but she has a passion that I hope does come through in the end. Like she is very passionate, and I like her lines. I like how she delivers them. Yeah, she's more than her name would suggest. I love them. They're super supportive. They're super helpful and friendly. I mean, it's fun that I think we kind of all got along from the beginning, which does not always happen in groups like this. But I immediately felt like we kind of had this camaraderie, and I didn't feel like I don't know. I didn't feel like this competitive atmosphere or this like we're trying to be better than the other. If anything, I've had so many cast members offer to help me with my accent, with lines, with extra rehearsals, and we even hang out afterwards. Like we hang out outside of rehearsals. So I love it. It's such an inspiration. Levin's great. What I love most is that he's very open. I would say his directing style is quite open, open to suggestion, open to critique, open to new ideas. That is really absolutely incredible. Like I've had directors that they knew what they wanted, which is fine, but they'd come in and be like, "This is it. Like this is what it's gonna be, and you either do it or get out." And I really love that he allows for us to put our 2 cents in, and I think in a way it pushes us then to give the best of ourselves. It forces us to kind of interpret because we can't rely on him being like, this is what it should be. In fact, a lot of times he's waiting to see what we give him. How do we portray the character? And then he'll either say, oh, I think that's great, maybe tweak a few things, but it pushes us to be creative as well. Well, I hope that they can get past all of the kind of funny moments. Probably those of us trying very hard to do accents, like me, that might not be the greatest, and kind of get past all of that and definitely past all of the drinking because that happens sometimes in satires, or it happens that people will just focus on all the comedy and everything. But to take that further and go, oh, but there are all these philosophical discussions that are happening, and they're spot on. They're exactly the things that we're thinking and talking about today, now. What is love? What's the meaning of it all? Where are we going? Why are we doing what we do? I mean, a lot of these are addressed in the monologues, but things like, why do my people do XYZ? Or why do we behave this way? What is it that we're yeah, like what is it that we're running from? Or all of these questions are things that go much, much deeper than, hey, they're being really funny, like they're drinking and there's all this satire. Like there's some deep themes in there to think about, and that relate again not just to Russians or to this play, but to us in general as humans. Like we all have a background and we all come from somewhere. So I want people to be able to connect that, to be like, that was a Russian play, but at the same time, like, wow, these themes are universal. I love my character. I know she's great. She has a lot of that passion, and there's a lot going on for her. And I want that to really touch the audience that's watching her. Like I really want them to go there with her, because there are going to be some very intense moments, and they're going to be like thoughtful moments. Like again, I think on the surface it can appear quite funny, like haha, she's kind of talking about to this lover, this former lover, and I don't want to give too much away, but it can seem and appear as one thing, but I'd like for people to find the lines beneath those lines if possible. I mean, I'm just gonna go in general again. I think she does remind me of certain women, even in my own life, that kind of go back to their glory days, or kind of relive their past in their heads, and then when they're discussing that, because as we age, as we grow older, people don't always see what we were before. I think that's one of the things about my character that I also love, is that the way she appears on the outside, there's a story behind her that you won't see if you just look at how she's dressed and how she's acting. And I think there are a lot of women who, have their past with them but hidden, that you don't see. And then there's a whole story there to discover, to unravel. And a lot of passionate women, strong women, who then will, let that out. And I think that's what my character at some point will aim to do, to let out that passion and overcome her physical appearance.